They say that the lake began glowing on the night the last ferry sank. It was subtle at first, a faint shimmer below the surface, like moonlight caught in slow motion. But when you stood at the shore long enough, you saw it breathing, pulsing with something that wasn't reflection. For years, no one dared to go near it after dark. The water looked too alive. When Clara Moreau returned to her hometown after 23 years away, the lake was still there, vast and still and humming beneath its skin. The road that wound down to it was the same one she had walked as a teenager, before the town folded in on itself and became a name whispered rather than spoken. The house she inherited stood halfway up the hill overlooking the water. It smelled like damp wood and unopened letters. The wallpaper had swollen and peeled into the shapes of continents. She opened every window to let the years out. The air that came in was colder than it should have been for early autumn, carrying the metallic scent of rain, and something older, the smell of water that remembered faces. The locals hadn't changed much. The postmaster still carried a limp from the storm that took the ferry. The grocer still avoided eye contact when you mentioned the lake. And every window facing west had the curtains drawn after dusk. On her first night, Clara stood at the kitchen sink and saw the light bloom through the fog. It came from the center of the lake, a slow unfurling luminescence that moved like a heartbeat. It wasn't reflection. There was no moon. Just that impossible glow rising from the depths, pushing against the dark like a memory resurfacing. She wanted to believe it was natural, phosphorescent algae, maybe, or some quirk of minerals. But the rhythm of the glow was wrong. It pulsed too deliberately, pausing just long enough to make you wait for it. It felt aware. By morning, the mist was gone, but the light stayed behind in her mind, echoing like afterimage. The town looked ordinary again, children walking to school, shutters creaking open, the world pretending it hadn't been haunted overnight. That afternoon, Clara found her father's journals in a locked chest beneath the floorboards. He had been the lake's caretaker once, part of the small team that measured water levels, temperature, and purity. The pages were filled with careful notations, then crossed out entries that grew more erratic. One sentence repeated itself for pages near the end. "It's not light. It's time trying to come back." She almost laughed. Almost. But when she closed the journal, she noticed her reflection in the window wasn't aligned with her movements. It lingered half a second longer, still staring toward the lake. Days turned to weeks. The glow returned every night at precisely 9:11 p.m. She timed it. She even tried to film it, but every recording came back dark. The lake refused to exist on film. The townsfolk offered advice without being asked. Don't leave windows open. Don't look at the water after midnight. Don't keep mirrors facing west. They spoke with the cautious politeness of people quoting someone else's warning. But Clara was an archivist by trade, trained to catalog what others feared to name. She began documenting everything, the color of the glow, between silver and bone, its duration, 23 minutes, the sound it made when the wind was still, a low hum, like wires vibrating in fog. She wrote until dawn, then fell asleep at the table. When she woke, her notebook was damp, and the handwriting on the last page wasn't hers. Don't measure it. Remember it. That night, she dreamed of standing on the lake bed, surrounded by glass bottles flickering with trapped light. Each bottle contained a heartbeat, faint but distinct. When she reached out to touch one, it pulsed against her palm, then burst, flooding her lungs with cold air. She woke choking on the taste of salt. The next morning, the townspeople whispered that the lake's glow had dimmed for the first time in years. Some took it as a blessing, others as a warning. Clara took it as invitation. At dusk, she rowed out alone. The water was mirror-smooth, reflecting nothing. In the silence, she could hear her oars dipping through layers, warm at the surface, colder with every inch down. Halfway to the center, the light began again, seeping upward, not from below but from around her. The lake was glowing beneath the skin of her boat, under her hands, inside the wood. It was as if the entire body of water had remembered her. Her father's words repeated in her head, "It's time trying to come back." She leaned over and saw the faint shapes moving under the light. Not bodies. Not fish. Just outlines, human, vague, shifting with the current. They weren't reaching for her. They were turning. Slowly, deliberately, as though looking toward the surface for the first time in a long while. Clara whispered an apology without knowing why. The water trembled. The glow pulsed faster, matching her heart. Then, with a sound like glass breathing, the light rose to the surface and burst outward. For a moment, the world inverted. The stars were below, the lake above, and time itself hung motionless. She saw faces in the water, hers, her father's, strangers, all blinking in the same rhythm. The boat rocked gently, then steadied. When she woke at dawn, she was on shore, dry and unhurt, but the lake was gone. Where it had been lay an expanse of dark sand, glistening faintly as though remembering water. In the middle stood a single glass bottle, half buried, glowing from within. Inside, something flickered, weak but steady, like a heartbeat waiting for the next second. Clara picked it up and whispered, "I remember." The light dimmed, then vanished. When the townspeople came down to the shore, they said the lake had drained overnight, as if it had simply decided to rest. But that night, as clouds gathered, they saw faint silver ripples glowing in the distance, far beyond where the waterline had been, moving, expanding, spreading like veins through the earth. And from her window, Clara watched the horizon pulse once, twice, then still. She understood then, the light had never belonged to the lake. It had only been borrowing the surface. It was beneath everything now, beneath the soil, the roads, the veins in her wrists, counting time the only way it knew how, by returning.